Welcome to IPL Deep Dive, the podcast that brings you expert analysis, thrilling match highlights, and all the drama of IPL 2025. Whether you're a diehard fan or just catching the cricket fever, we've got you covered with in-depth insights and engaging discussions. Get ready to explore the heart of the action with your hosts, Mike and Michelle, as they dive into today's match analysis. It's time to step onto the pitch and join the conversation.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Okay, so you've shared the ESPN Cricinfo YouTube transcript, looking at that recent IPL clash, Gujarat Titans versus Royal Challengers Bengaluru. That's what we're digging into today.
Yep, sounds good.
Our mission basically is to unpack why GT got the win, what it tells us about both teams' game plans, and maybe even spot some bigger trends popping up this IPL season. All about getting that quick, sharp insight. So, where do we start with this one?
Well, what's interesting straight off is, GT won pretty comfortably, 8 wickets. But the story behind that win, it's actually got quite a few layers when you look at the turning points and what the analysts were saying.
Totally. The chat starts by mentioning it was Rajat Patidar's first loss as RCB skipper this season, but it pivots pretty quickly to how, controlled that GT chase felt. And Jos Buttler, he's right at the center of that. His chasing rep is highlighted, including those 2 tons for Rajasthan last year, 1 against RCB, funnily enough. What makes him so good in those run chases?
That's a really good place to start. Butler's thing in chases, it's not just hitting runs, right? It's his temperament, how he paces things. When you're chasing, the target's right there. A guy like Butler, he knows how to manage risk, build partnerships, and then, hit the gas at just the right time. Think about those hundreds. They weren't just like wild slogging, calculated. He read the game, timed his attacks.
And that pacing, it seems crucial for GT's whole approach, doesn't it? The analysis really stresses that for GT to win consistently, one of their top 3, Butler included, needs to bat deep, like hang around till the 15th over or so. Their wins seem to follow that pattern. You kind of suggest they really rely on that solid start because maybe their batting depth isn't seen as quite as deep.
Precisely. And knowing your team's strengths and weaknesses, that's basic stuff. GT seems to have built their plan around getting the absolute most out of that quality top order. It's a clear instruction. Build a platform and have someone steer the ship, whether chasing or batting first.
It's interesting how they sort of separate Shubman Gill, saying he's maybe better setting a target from Butler, the chase master, and then there's Sai Sudarshan, who's just becoming this really consistent run machine for them, reliable. And in this match specifically, that target wasn't huge, which must have made pacing it easier. Less pressure from the scoreboard.
Exactly. Chasing something below par, the whole vibe changes. The chasing side can just dictate terms, really. They can afford to wait, build those partnerships, not feel like they have to take crazy risks every other ball. It's a tactical edge they definitely used here.
Okay, let's switch gears. GT's bowling, first innings. The analysis hints this is where they really got ahead. Apparently their bowlers historically and in this game focus hard on attacking the stumps. Like a Lehigh, 50% of their power play balls hit the stumps. That even got Siraj bowled.
Yeah.
Why is hitting the stumps so effective?
Well, think about it. If you're constantly aiming there, you maximize your chances of bowled or LBW, right? Simple dismissals. It makes the batter play straighter, cuts down their angles to score freely. A ball hitting the stumps, no doubt. No close catches needed, no reviews for edges. Plus, on some pitches or against batters who tend to play across the line, it can be really good.
And what's really interesting is the contrast they showed with RCB's power play bowling in that same innings. At the start, 0 balls attacking the stumps.
Yeah.
That's a big difference in approach. Could that be different instructions or maybe how they read the pitch?
It definitely suggests different strategies. Maybe RCB were looking for swing, outside off, trying for edges. Or perhaps they just didn't think hitting the stumps would pay off on that surface. Whatever it was, the data shows a clear split in how they bowled those first 6 overs.
And it wasn't just about, blindly chucking it at the stumps either. They mentioned some data on Shubman Gill. His average was way lower when the ball actually hit the stumps compared to when it missed. Really shows that risk-reward thing with that aggressive line, doesn't it? You might get a wicket, but miss slightly, runs.
Absolutely. Accuracy is everything if you're going for the stumps. You got to be in that danger zone consistently, be a bit off, and you're just feeding them runs. And that point about aiming for off and middle being better than leg stump, that's key. Leg stump balls can often just be tucked away, Off and middle, they're more direct threats.
It sounds like GT's bowling might also be influenced by a coaching philosophy. They hinted at Ashish Nehra, but didn't name him, where the bowlers are kind of okay if batters hit them over mid-on or mid-off. That feels like it could simplify things for the bowlers, right? Focus their efforts.
Exactly. Narrow the focus, simplify the decisions. They're not trying to bowl miracle balls every time, just execute consistently in a specific zone. If the batter clears the fielder, fair enough, good shot. But you haven't strayed from your plan.
Right. Okay, let's flip back to RCB's batting. The conversation stressed how tough it was for them to set a decent total. Once that lower score was up, the whole game just felt different. GT could be patient, while RCB might have felt that pressure to, force things and maybe played some rash shots.
That's such a key dynamic in T20. Don't put enough runs up and boom, your bowlers are under the pump straight away. The chasers can pick their moments, take their time. The team batting first might try too hard, lose wickets.
Yeah. And they mentioned a wider trend, didn't they? Teams batting first seeming to struggle to post those really big, intimidating totals. Lots of one-sided games recently, this being the third straight 8-wicket win for the chaser. That's quite a pattern early on.
It really is. Makes you wonder if teams are still figuring out the best way to bat. With current conditions, the rules, are they going hard enough early or maybe too hard and collapsing?
They did bring up the impact sub-rule as maybe playing a part. The thinking is, it might encourage that go hard from ball one vibe, knowing you've got an extra batter up your sleeve. But that could lead to more collapses, like teams being, 40 for 4. Just to remind folks, the impact sub lets you swap a player out after the toss.
That's a fair theory. Having that safety net and extra batter waiting might make the top order feel they can take more risks. But if those risks don't come off, you're in trouble fast.
Though they did add a counterpoint chasing 200 plus. Even on smaller grounds, it's still historically tough. So while everyone might be pushing for fast starts, actually chasing down a really big one, still a massive challenge.
Oh, absolutely. It's a balance, isn't it? You want to put pressure on, but you need a platform, too. Chasing 200 still takes something special, maybe a bit of luck, too.
Which leads to a strategic question. Will teams start tweaking things? Maybe play out the really good bowlers more, knowing there are others to target later? It kind of felt like GT did that a bit against guys like Bhuvneshwar and Hazelwood.
That's just smart T20 cricket, isn't it? Recognizing a bowler's on fire, being a bit more watchful against them, then targeting others. It's managing the whole innings, not just trying to whack every single ball.
Whereas RCB, they noted, went pretty hard even when Siraj was bowling well, which led to Salt getting out. Highlights maybe a different plan, or maybe just, execution on the day.
Exactly. Sometimes the intent's okay, but the execution lets you down. Or maybe their plan was to pressure Siraj early, even if it meant taking a risk. It's that constant tactical push and pull.
And this feeds into that whole discussion about batting styles. For ages, the chat around Kohli was, needs to go harder. Now with these trends, maybe there's a need for more measured innings to guarantee a par score. Aim for 190 instead of risking a collapse, trying for 210, especially if your batting is not super deep.
It's an interesting shift in thinking. It used to be all about the power play, getting that flying start. Now with the sub and these chasing results, maybe building a more solid base, even if it's a touch slower to start, might actually be the smarter play.
They did give credit to Livingston and Jitesh, though. Said they showed some fight in the RCB innings, steadied things a bit, stopped a complete implosion.
Which shows, some players get that balance. Aggression versus responsibility. Even in T20, you can't just swing wildly. Building partnerships, rotating strikes, still vital.
Okay, bowling plans again. The question came up. Did GT just have better plans than RCB? And about RCB's choices, like not playing Suyash Sharma, going with Rafiq Salam instead, the panel felt it was probably a toss-up. Likely came down to whether they thought the pitch would help pace or spin more. They did mention Kunal Pandya went for a few runs.
Yeah, that just shows how crucial reading the pitch and picking the right XI is. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes not so much. Kunal Pandya being expensive suggests maybe it wasn't a spinner's paradise, or perhaps he just wasn't quite on it that day.
A big part of the chat, though, was Rashid Khan. His recent form was called a huge area of concern for GT. Over 50 runs conceded here. Second worst figures ever in the IPL for him. Didn't bowl his full 4 overs last game either. And apparently it follows a bit of a pattern from last year. Had a tough game against RCB then too, when Will Jacks went after him. What'd you make of this dip from such a massive player?
It's fascinating how quickly things can change in T20, isn't it? For years, Rashid was almost mystical, unplayable. Now there's this feeling that maybe batters are starting to get a better read on him, maybe playing him more like a regular offie, even though his main weapon is that googly, spinning away from the righty.
The panel even threw out some ideas for how Rashid could adjust, maybe bowling wider on the crease, targeting off stump more to make it tougher for right-handers to hit him over mid-wicket and square leg areas where he can sometimes leak runs. The vibe seems to be that that fear factor needs to come back for GT.
That's good insight. Even the absolute best have to keep evolving. If batters think they can line you up, they won't hold back. Changing angles, hitting different spots, Rashid can definitely try things to mess with their rhythm, make them second guess.
On a more positive spin note for GT, Saiki Shore got a good mention, called a rare, pure left-arm spinner, in a league with loads of all-rounders who bowl left-arm spin. Praised for his classical style, control, and steely resolve. Apparently bowled over the wicket to a big hitter, probably someone like Jaiswal, who loves attacking left-arm spin.
Yeah.
What makes him stand out?
What's really cool about Sai Kishore is how he sticks to that classic left-arm orthodox stuff. He's not all about mystery variations. It's control, tiny pace changes, using the angle into the right-hander. Comparing him to guys like Vittori and Santner, that says a lot about his skill and his head.
They specifically mentioned his carom ball, the one that got Krunal Pandya out. Said it's not that common for left-armers, but super effective against lefties. Could maybe encourage captains to use pure left-armers more if they have that trick. For anyone unsure, a carom ball's flicked out differently gives it unusual spin.
Exactly. Different flight, different spin direction can really trouble left-handers who expect the ball to turn away. It's a great surprise weapon.
Looking bigger picture then, team makeup. The fact GT won 2 out of 3, even with Rashid maybe not at his peak, and perhaps another big batter not quite firing, that's seen as a really good sign for them. It suggests a solid, well-rounded squad. Good depth.
That kind of resilience is massive in a long tournament like the IPL. Winning when your stars aren't quite shining shows the strength of the whole unit, others stepping up, things.
Mohammad Siraj got player of the match, which they noted was a nice moment. His new ball bowling was talked about more in the mid-innings show, apparently.
Yeah.
And looking ahead, GT's off to Hyderabad to play Sunrisers, while RCB head to Mumbai to face MI.
Yeah, those next games will be interesting tests for both. We'll see how they react and adapt.
So wrapping up our deep dive here, drawing from that analysis you shared, some key things stand out. GT's clear plan with the ball attacking stumps. Butler doing Butler things in a chase. RCB's challenge-setting totals. Rashid Khan's form being watched closely. And a nice emergent story with Saiki Shore's left-arm spin.
Yeah. And pulling all that together, it leaves you with a thought, doesn't it? With chasers doing well early on and teams batting first, maybe struggling, how will batting strategies change as the season goes on? Will we keep seeing this go hard from ball one approach, or maybe a bit more caution building innings to make sure you get a competitive score? It's definitely something to keep an eye on.